All right, welcome in, folks, Desert hockey fans, Desert Southwest hockey fans. It's another Sunday special with Ice Time Hockey Southwest. Crystal Roe is with me with Crystal's Precision Power Skating, correct?
Yep.
I saw the new logo. It looks great.
Awesome.
I know you've been busy. We're here at AZ Ice Peoria, which is your home base, I take it?
Yes, it is.
Well, it's great to have you in. As I told you before we got started, it's going to be a conversation. We like to just talk hockey, so we bring people in that do a number of different things. I know that you do a lot of figure skating.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you also do a lot of power skating.
Yep.
And you can't play hockey if you can't skate, correct?
Bingo. And right on the head. You have that one correct.
All right, so tell me a little bit about yourself, first of all. How did you get started in hockey? What made you want to be an instructor for figure skating and power skating?
Well, I started figure skating, when I was just before my 11th birthday. I did that for about 4 years, and when I turned 15, I got hired on as our Learn to Skate coach in California, which is where I'm from. And ever since then, I have just loved coaching with the kids, and I felt like I can connect with them on another level. Not only that, but it's as a coach, you actually learn so much more than when you're actually doing it yourself. I got introduced to power skating by another power skating coach in California who I use for a lot of references and resources, and she works with very high-level players now, NHL. And she kind of guided me through that. You know, when I first moved here in 2007 and decided to pick back up doing the power skating, I actually would go back to California and work with her for a couple weeks. And she said, you know, Arizona is going to be your state.
Right.
I'm going to give you the tools. You need to come up with your system. You need to watch numerous hours of pro players, body mechanics, their technical work, and learn how to break things down so that I can be able to coach it to these kids. Right. And so ever since then, that's just kind of kicked off, and here we are now.
Okay, so California to Arizona. Obviously, we know the climate difference. We know the cost difference. What's the difference in hockey and skating between Arizona and California? Is there a difference or not?
I believe that there is a difference. I did have to adjust a little bit here when I moved to California, or moved from California to Arizona. That's hard to say because they are very different. The training aspect is very different than it is here in Arizona, whereas California, it's very nitty gritty. It's tough, and so trying to translate that to here in both figure skating and hockey, it's kind of difficult, you know.
Okay, well, in Arizona, we always complain about not enough ice sheets. I don't know what California's like, but we're trying to build more here as the game grows. And as you've seen, the numbers have grown exponentially. I know in the last 5 years that we've been doing this, it's just gone crazy, right? So we need more ice sheets, correct?
Correct. Yes, correct. And I know that they're working on it. I mean, the rink that I came from California they just built their 5th surface. Okay. So it's kind of a bigger beast in California, whereas Arizona is starting to kind of come up in, I don't want to say the hockey world because hockey's been here forever. Right. But just like the training and the need of certain things, it's a lot more intense, you know, like my job, it's more intense. There's more players now in the Valley than there was years and years and years ago. So we're getting there.
Okay, so from like 2007 to now we're in 2019. What kind of changes have you seen? What have you had to adapt to? Are there things that you've had to do differently?
Oh, I know you're putting me on the spot on this one. Not really, because I'm trying to take what I've learned in California as a figure skater, as getting into power skating there, and trying to translate it to here. It hasn't really been that hard. It's kind of the only adjustment I would have to say would be just the intensity.
Okay.
The intensity. You know, we see this all the time where, you know, players have these big dreams and they have these big expectations on themselves, and sometimes they just don't want to put the work in. They don't want to practice their skating. They want to practice their stick handling and shooting, and it's, you know, first and foremost, you can't do stick handling or shooting if you can't put the skating skills with it. So that's probably been the biggest adjustment, is just trying to get, like, myself, for me personally, is getting my skaters to practice their skating skills first and foremost, and then translate that with the puck, and then, you know, obviously shooting comes right after that.
Okay, so let's get a little more rundown on your background. You told us when you got started and everything. You have a family over here now, right? So you're a busy mom as well, but tell us a little bit about what it's like to adjust to coaching and doing what you do with players, and still having a family and putting that all together.
Oh, yeah. It's been difficult. It's funny that you say that because we're in a huge family dynamic situation right now, which is, you know, my husband, you know, he played hockey, competitive hockey,
Okay.
and so he understands, my side of it as a coach.
Right.
But working and having 2 kids, one's 7, will be 7, and then one that's 4.
Wow.
It's
got your
been,
hands full.
yeah, and neither one of them play hockey. So before anybody asks, nope, they don't play hockey. We're working on it.
Right.
But it's been a very, we've had to work together, and especially right now with him getting on to, he just got hired on with Phoenix PD, and so that's changing his schedule, which then changes my schedule,
Right.
and just trying to balance everything. But he's very understanding, and okay, if you have to go in and do this, then we'll make it work. We'll make it work. And so we've been able to make it work for we've been married for 9 years.
Very good.
9 years next year. So.
All right, well, let's take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk a little about specifics of power skating. I also want to touch on figure skating, though, and we'll also talk a little bit about how the two interact with each other, okay?
Sounds good.
We'll be right back. Ice Time Hockey Southwest Sunday Special. As everybody knows by now, it's a Sunday Special because we want you to watch it Sunday night when you're done with your hockey weekend. You're relaxing. You just want to see a conversation, talk about hockey. We're also talking about a little figure skating, but we're talking mostly powers. No. Figure skating is important as well. So CRYSTAL ROE is with me for a second segment. As I told you after the first segment, we're going to talk a little bit about your specifics on power skating. I want to start out basically by talking about how important it is to properly power skate, not just skate, right?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about it and how important is power skating to being a good hockey player?
It's primarily one of the key components in playing hockey. Like we said it before in the first segment, you can't play hockey if you can't skate. Right. If you can't skate, you can't play. You can't skate, you can't stick handle. Can't skate, you can't shoot. I mean, it's just that is the base, the foundation of the game. Right. And the way hockey has evolved over the years, it's faster, it's quicker. The tempo is just more intense. Your skating skills have to be on point, which is your body mechanics. Right. You know, your coaches want you to move super fast at a split second, but you have to be able to know how to get your body there. It's one thing doing it and maneuvering it, but understanding and getting your body mechanics to do it when it's time, pretty much.
Oh, I have so many questions. The first one is going to be, you see the improvement in goaltenders, right? They're getting better and better and better. So in order for goal scorers to score goals, they need to have a quick release. They need to be on balance. They need to be in the right spot and really shoot the puck quickly. Mm-hmm. Power skating is a big part of that, isn't it?
Exactly. It's the same thing. You got to be on point. You got to be quick. You got to be intense. You got to be quick. You fast. I mean, that's just, especially now, it's just like goalies. Goalies should do power skating as well too.
Yeah.
So
let's talk a little bit about what you do to develop that in a person. If somebody comes to you relatively new, a newbie skater, they've skated, they know how to play the game a little bit, but they want to get better at it. They want to excel at it. What's the first thing that you would do to them?
I normally do with first-time players. It doesn't matter the age or the level. I always put them through a evaluation. Okay. So in that evaluation, what I have is I have written out, again, after, when I first started doing hours of video research, watching top players in the NHL, their body mechanics, I've kind of put together an evaluation form, which is what we do before every session. So if I have a first-time player, I always do the evaluation. It is timed. There's about 5 drills on there, 6 drills. That go through every specific portion of the game where you would use stuff, like quick starts, forward accelerations, cross starts, transitions, tight turns. We evaluate that whole entire thing because every player is completely different. Not one player is the same, so their technique is going to be very different. So that's one of the things that I really try to look for in those players on that evaluation on their first day is their body mechanics, how their bodies function, and then after that I put together a personalized program for them. So if it's on the off season during the summer, that's where I start to kind of develop the players. Their summer training plan is off that evaluation form.
Okay, I saw some video that you put out because you put out a lot of it, and I watched transitions, and I'm going like, wow, if you can get players to transition the way you get them to transition, and we're going to show some video later in the show, but how important is that transition right now, getting from point A? I mean, a hockey player is out there for 30, 45 seconds a shift. How important is it for them to be able to make quick transitions one way or the other?
It's probably one of the most important things because the game play changes so quickly, right, so fast. And so with that one that I know which one you're talking about. With that one is I actually started just doing this a couple weeks ago. It's called the Y pattern.
Right.
So a lot of coaches, they have their players do top to bottom, so north to south, east to west.
Yep.
But what about that time when you have your opponent or you have a player who is not specifically north to south or east to west? They're off at an angle.
Yeah.
So what we've done is from the east to west, the north to south, is I've went ahead and transitioned that into an angle transition to get the players to transition a little bit quicker in a more difficult position. Transitions are probably one of the biggest keys. Whether you're offensive or you're defensive, you have to be able to transition at the drop of a hat very quickly. Doesn't matter what position you play, you have to be able to transition quick and accelerate from that transition.
All right. When I grew up playing hockey many moons ago in northern Minnesota, we learned an awful lot about quick starts, right? Quick starts, quick stops, get down, get up. Still important or not as important as transitions in your mind?
That's a good question. I still think that it's just as important as those transitions, because when you have a transition or you have a stop start, you still have to regain that momentum and that speed. So I still train quick starts, whether it's the V start. You know, a lot of coaches call it different things. Every coach
Right.
is very different. I call it the V start, which is the forward neutral start. And we do a lot of cross starts. I still focus on those probably just as much, if not more, than those quick transitions.
Okay.
Because when the players master those quick transitions, what comes after that, it's that acceleration. So accelerations, I think, is probably still one of the top most used. And
Okay.
should be trained the most as well.
Okay, so what have I missed in the power skating session? If you have somebody on the ice, I know there's a bunch, right? But transitions, starts, stops, what else do you like to do to improve the overall skating of a hockey player?
Extensions.
Ah,
Extensions.
I saw that video.
Yes. Nothing drives me more crazy, and I know I have a lot of other power skating friends also can relate to this, is that nothing drives a power skating coach or a coach in general when a coach says, okay, show me quick feet, and they do short, choppy,
Right.
and they don't cover the ice.
Right.
So our job is to make sure that they can cover as much ice as possible in as minimal steps, but still get that ice coverage, which is then going to create that power, which is then going to create that speed.
Okay.
So I would extensions.
Okay, you heard it right here. Crystal Roe says extensions are important, hockey players. We're going to take another quick break. We're going to come back because I want to touch now in this next segment a little bit about skates and how much they've changed. I want to talk a little bit about that figure skating we've been teasing along, and then we'll talk just a little bit about some of the stuff that you do here at AZ Ice Peoria. We'll be right back in just a minute. All right, we're back, folks. Hockey fans in the desert Southwest. It's August, it's hot, but we're getting closer and closer to hockey season. And if you know anything about the game, you need to know that you need to know how to skate, right? So Crystal Roe is still with me here. We're still talking hockey. We talked about your background. We talked about what you like to do on the ice to teach players to be better skaters. Now I want to talk a little bit different. I want to talk a little bit about the equipment, right? You can't skate if you don't have proper skates. They need to be properly fit. They've changed over the years. I remember my first pair was probably about $15. Now they're about $1,500.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about.
They do customs now too.
Tell me a little bit about skates.
Okay, so
She's
The-
trying
the
to be
ev-
politically correct, folks.
the evolution of the hockey skates. What this is, and this is just, you know, for me as a coach, this is what I tell my players. Skates are made by companies for the athlete. They've done research. They know how the boots are supposed to flex. They know how the boots are supposed to bend. They are supposed to be tied. They are supposed to be tied tight. I know every player has the personal preference, tongue in, tongue out, that kind of stuff. But my biggest thing with that, with the skates and the equipment, is the skates have to be tied tight, because in order to have, and we'll talk about this when we get onto the ice, I will mention this a little bit, that when you're trying to gain power and speed and you're trying to gain push off of those edges, the loosest of the skates will never, ever create as much power as a tied skate
Right.
with a good body mechanic position. So the equipment is extremely important, especially having, you know, skates that aren't broken down. And you can always tell because sometimes your ankles will start hurting.
Yeah.
Skates are always going to hurt, and I always tell my kids it's whether it's figure skating or whether it's hockey. The skates break your foot in, you don't break those skates in.
Right.
So if your feet are hurting, you just kind of got to suck it up, and it'll go away. And we say the same thing to figure skaters. I mean, even in figure skating, we have custom figure skates. Which you still have to break in. And now that they're starting out with custom hockey skates, which I'm finally like, yay. Don't know what took it. I don't know what took them so long. Figure skating, we've been doing it for a long time. I know that professionals, they would get custom skates, but now they're starting to kind of release that out into the mainstream of hockey, which I'm very excited about. So.
All right. Well, Jeremy Roenick told me something last weekend when I visited with him. He said, pain is temporary, pride is forever. You like that?
I love that. I love that. And actually, one of the things I can't take credit for this one. One of my hockey moms said this is, the kid got off the ice and he was hurting.
Right.
He was very uncomfortable, and the mom's like, sometimes getting better sucks.
Yeah.
Just like that. Sometimes when you break in those skates, it sucks. Sometimes you just have to adapt with it.
All right. Well, let me tell you, when I grew up in northern Minnesota, we played a lot of outside hockey. I played in the last Minnesota State high school team that played outdoor games, right? We skated barefoot, okay? And our feet were sweating at the end of a skating session, not cold.
Barefoot with shoes on?
No. Barefoot in our skates. We didn't put socks on.
I know.
Your thought on that?
100%. 100%.
Why?
Okay, so this is going to go back to figure skating, which I'm going to kind of relate to that again as well, too. In figure skating, I've done it both ways. I've done it with, socks on. I've done it with socks off. I've done it with nylons. For some reason, when you are barefoot, the boot gets tight around the foot. Not only that, the boot gets tight around the foot, even if it's just a really small nylon for figure skaters, or even like the nylons that they have, for the hockey socks. You feel the edges better. Yeah. It's very interesting, and even it could be the thinnest of socks, but if you go barefoot, it's almost like it's a whole different fit. Yeah. So I actually go barefoot.
Well, I remember at about 30 below zero with a wind chill, we were skating outside barefoot, and people thought we were crazy. And when you come back in and you're done, and you'd be taking your skates off, and your feet be sweating. Yep. So it was like incredible. Okay, so we talked about that. I want to have you a little more time to touch on figure skating. So tell me about figure skating and how that correlates to hockey, and how hockey correlates to figure skating, or do they?
That's a loaded question. The reason why I say that is because I've done both. Yeah. I figure skated for 18, 19 years. Double gold medalist, went to nationals, intercollegiate nationals, and I've done hockey. Mm-hmm. So they're very different. Okay. They're very different. I
thought that might be the case, but
yes, and I know some coaches. Again, everybody has their own opinion, but from what I have found out, and I have researched, and I have done myself, the skates are very different. Yep. The blades are very different. Obviously, other than the fact that figure skates have toe picks and hockey skates don't have toe picks, but the rockers are very different, okay. And even the edges are very different. So it's hard sometimes to compare the two as in relation to each other because it's very different. In figure skating, we have what's called forward stroking, which is what we would call strides in hockey. Yep. Figure skating, you're in an upright more position, and you still have the good knee bend, and you have a little bit of the hip bend, but it's ankle bend and knee bend, whereas hockey, it's almost like, I call it a 3-point knee bend. Right. And so that's where the hip has to press back and get deep into the ice, the knees have to press forward, and the ankles have to bend, which causes that 3-point bend. Figure skating, it's mainly you're very upright, and the recoveries are very different, crossovers are very different. The basic is pretty much the same, however, when you do get up to the higher levels, it does change quite a bit. The pushes are not the same.
All right. So I've seen hockey players. I've seen figure skaters. I have a feeling they're both equally as competitive. Your thoughts on competitiveness between the two?
You should come to our house with this debate. Because my husband played competitive hockey. He grew up here in Arizona, and we actually met here. Okay. And I actually did a couple lessons with him, and then I was like, this isn't going to work. So we have that debate all the time. But now that I am so engulfed in power skating, and I'm so engulfed in hockey now, where I still do figure skating, but power skating has just completely just took off for me here. It's definitely a conversation that you guys should see at our house. I have to say, but honestly, joking aside, they're equally as hard in their own situations. Right. Whereas figure skating, it's judged with judges. Hockey, you have referees, you know, and sometimes they
Nobody
say
likes them, but they're there.
they're there, you know, and sometimes they make the game or they don't make the game. It's just kind of one of those things. But figure skating is definitely more detailed.
Yes.
It's very intricate. You know, your head is in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's going to throw your jumps off, everything off. And then in hockey for power skating, it's kind of like the same thing. And I think that's why some of the best power skating coaches in the NHL and the best power skating coaches anywhere are ex-figure skaters, is because we have that correlation. We pay so much to that details, the body mechanics, the positioning, okay, shoulders, hips. That's kind of where it comes together. But being one or the other, I would say they're difficult in their own ways, I guess.
Okay. Where do we go from here? Let's talk a little bit more about power skating, then we're going to wrap things up for you because you're going to take us on the ice and show us some things out there. So, all right, as we talk power skating, and we talk about a lot of great players, and I talked to Hiroki Wakabayashi, who was our first Sunday special last week, and Hiroki said that the difference between goaltenders, she said every goaltender right now that goes to a tryout for any level can stop the puck, right? But his estimation was somebody needed to stand out to be better, to make a team, to be the starter or whatever. So he was talking specifically for goalies. I can tell you from what I've seen all the hockey that I do, that the differences between the guys who are first liners and fourth liners or barely getting ice time is the fact that they can skate better. They make better moves, they work on it harder. Is it possible to move a fourth liner to a first liner just through skating?
I believe yes.
Okay.
Yep, that depends on the player themselves,
Right.
on how bad they want it, and if they're driven to make that progress and they're committed to their training and they're committed to their power skating sessions or their skill sessions and combining all of it together, I definitely believe a player is capable for anything,
Right.
as long as they're dedicated. Yeah.
Okay, we can't end it on any better note than that, so let's wrap things up. CRYSTAL ROE, thanks for stepping in with us today. I know it's crazy busy for you as well, but we're here at AZ Ice Peoria. You're going to take us out on the ice and show us a few moves. We'll put that in at the end of the show, so stay tuned, watch the whole thing. Good luck with everything that you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep growing the game in Arizona and growing the game in the Desert Southwest.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Okay, so one of the biggest things I check with my players when we first start, and it's the biggest, most important part of the player's skating, is their basic position, which is their low position. Now, a lot of players, they get into their basic position and they're here. That is the position, that is your hockey position, but we are going to do a basic skating position. So Chris can. What I normally do, he's a little bit taller, so I don't know. So normally what I do is I have the player get down. So we talked about the 3-point knee bend in the segments. So we have the hip bend, we have the knee bend, and then we have the ankle bend. Now, a good sign for me as a coach is that when I get a player who has a good knee bend, I am going to get as much space behind their calf muscle right at that tendon guard as much as possible. Not only that, but I'm also going to get the shaking where the knee is going to press forward to help with that positive motion forward for power. He's going to make sure that he leans there, and by doing that, he's going to already have his momentum start to carry forward. So that's basically the first position I usually try to do. Now I'm going to show you an exercise that I normally do with them to feel that position first.
Okay.
So I'm going to do this one. Okay. All right. So what I usually have my players do for this one to feel that basic position, not only is it working the low position, but it's also working on keeping the feet underneath their hips and their bottom. Okay. Versus recovering here, which is going to cause a very wide stride and no recovery. So we're going to take 2 pushes, and we're going to put our feet close together. We're going to press our knees forward over the toes. We're going to get that ankle bend here. We're going to get the hip bend, and we are going to get that knee bend, and we're going to keep our chest and our chin up, and we're going to hold that position for as long as we can.
Okay.
You ready?
Okay.
In the previous segment, we talked about the Y pattern. Instead of doing the north, to south, east to west. We're going to go ahead and do the wide pattern, which is going to take the player to swing their hips, recover, and accelerate in an off position, meaning not a comfortable normal front to back or left to right position. So what we're going to demonstrate first is he's going to do the wide pattern forwards to backwards, back to forwards. So you have a hip twist, you have your back cross, you have an open toe, and then a forward acceleration, and then continue the drill on the other side.
All right, before we go any farther, tell us who he is.
How do I introduce him? This is Chris Fritz. He has been one of my longtime players for quite a while. He was actually going to be moving away and playing juniors actually a couple of weeks.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So this is kind of like my last hurrah.
The last hurrah with him. Let's see how he does.
If you have a big extension, you're going to have a very big push, meaning if the leg is not fully extended and you're not in a good knee bend position to execute that extension, your stride or your push is going to be very off. Now in hockey, you have three different types of pushes. You have the inside edge extension, which is the inside edge stride. You have the outside edge extension, which is the undercut or the cross under. And then you also have the back inside edge as well as the back outside edge. So what we're going to do first, we're going to talk about this forward stride inside edge extension. So I'm going to have Chris come over here. So we're going to get down into that pace position that we talked about earlier, that low position. Now when I start the player off, I need them to feel their body mechanics. So what I'm going to have him do is he's going to go ahead and he's going to stretch his leg out and he's going to unlock his hips to a full extension. Okay. Now the biggest part about the extension is snapping off the toe. Okay, so right here, making sure that the heel is completely up off the ice. The tendon guard is completely up against the calf muscle, and his body weight is over his sliding side. Okay, so I usually have the players hold that for about 10 seconds. I have them release it and drive it right back in. Yeah, chest and in. We repeat the same thing on the other side. Okay, so now when we do this moving, same exact thing, just the exercise we showed earlier, the two-foot glide motion in that nice low position. Now we're going to execute the extension with it. Okay, you ready? extension. And then once they can master that inside edge grip coming outside of the hip, then we talk about pushing up off the toe and driving the knee up for the recovery.
I watch IceTimeHockeySW.com.